Hello, my name is Steve, and I am one of the hosts of the 2023 Charlie Fouche APBA Shootout. We had our event yesterday at the Embassy Suites by Hilton at Hamilton Place. We had 22 participants, and we had, I think, I counted 5 or 6 new people. I'll indicate the new people as I read the teams and who had what teams and stuff. I just want to show you the grid I used to do the schedule. We don't, we haven't used divisions the last few years. And because over the past couple months, out of the people that originally signed up, we would have had 30 people, which would have gotten a little tight in the room. But we ended up just having 22 with me playing. And we had, I think overall, I counted 9 people that, for one reason or another, had signed up but couldn't make it. So that was the schedule grid, and I have it add across and down so I get everything right. And if you notice, the names start down here and go up reverse alphabetically, then they start here and go that way reverse alphabetically. And that way I'm just using half the grid. And if I do my diagonal lines, like the yellow starts here and then picks back up over here and goes down to here, that helps me from repeating the schedule. Anyway, it's just a kind of a graphic mathematical way to do the scheduling without it being difficult. So the graphical, I can't remember it's like a graphic theory or something with math that you use to kind of keep from repeating yourself, and it helps me it just makes it a lot easier for scheduling, especially when you're doing 22. And the last guy, when I'd done the schedule, I think the Thursday before, which would have been, I don't know, the 15th or 14th, whatever.
The 14th was Tuesday. That was my birthday.
Yeah, it was. So it was the 16th was when I did the schedule, and then we had one guy drop out. So I just plugged my name into his spot and didn't have to redo the schedule again. But it takes 10 minutes to do the schedule. It's not hard at all. I'll read over. Here's the results table where I did the schedule by rounds, and I don't know if you can see this, but I matched the colors here match with the colors on the graph. So that kind of all goes together to make everything. I'd try to do it as simply as possible. That work harder, not smarter, or whatever thing.
Work smarter, not harder.
That's it. That's why she's the master. So we had here's our standings page, and we had the brackets for the finals, and I'll go through and read this. My team was the 2006 Atlanta Braves, and I went 6-4. And the theme was a team with a losing record managed by a Hall of Fame manager. And I kind of loosely referred to it as the ego trip theme, because can you win with a team that a Hall of Fame manager lost with? Are you a better manager than a Hall of Fame manager? And do you have better dice? Probably. Anyway, so I had the 2006 Atlanta Braves. I went 6-4. Ken Wykes went 4-6 with the 1902 Chicago Orphans. Pete Simonelli went 7-3 with the 1908 Philadelphia A's. James Honeycutt went 5-5 with the 1912 Cincinnati Reds. Tim Rounds went 7-3 with the 1914 Brooklyn Robins. David Norwood went 3-7 with the 1915 Chicago Cubs. Greg Wells went 7-3 with the 1919 Boston Red Sox. Jody Honeycutt, our defending champion, went 2-8 with the 1919 Brooklyn Robins, so he obviously did not defend his title. Tom Lee was a new attendee, and he went 7-3 with the 1921 Detroit Tigers. Also, of these other names, Greg Wells, it was his first time attending our tournament, as was David Norwood, also a first-time attendee. Liam Honeycutt went 4-6 with the 1922 Brooklyn Robins. Cullen Honeycutt went 5-5 with the 1923 Brooklyn Robins. Another first-time attendee, Tony Stevens, had the 1924 Cleveland Indians, and he went 9-1. He had the best divisional round robin record. Connor Honeycutt went 5-5 with the 1928 Washington Senators. Caden Honeycutt, another first-time attendee and the sixth of all the Honeycutts we had, he went 2-8 with the 1952 Boston Red Sox. Paul Evans was another first-time attendee. He went 5-5 with the 1970 St. Louis Cardinals. Frank Fume, who won our second annual shootout, he went 4-6 with the 1968 New York Mets. Randy Tabor went 6-4 with the 1971 Reds. David Dawn went 2-8 with the 1972 Cincinnati Royals. Jack Dolan, another first-time attendee, went 4-6 with the 1975 California Indians. Eric Marks went 7-3 with the 1978 Montreal Expos. John Klaus, with the 1983 San Francisco Giants, went 5-5, and he's also a first-time attendee. And co-host Mike Kerr went 4-6 with the 2008 Atlanta Braves. Mike Kerr, Connor Honeycutt, Jody Honeycutt, and Ken Wykes and me, we are the only people that have been to all 5 Charlie Fouche APBA shootouts. So we had Tony Stevens had the best record for the round robin, and we had 5 people tie for the last 3 spots in the playoffs. And I try not to do anything arbitrarily, although we obviously had to have some arbitrary decisions with the 5 teams tying for 3 spots. So the teams that went 7-3 were Pete Simonelli, Greg Wells, Tom Lee, Eric Marks, and Tim Rounds. And so I was going to give the bye to the person that had traveled the farthest to get here, and Pete Simonelli was the one that traveled the longest distance, but he didn't want the bye. I think he was hoping to go upstairs and take a nap, and we love Pete. So the 2 people that it was their first time attending to make the playoffs were Tom Lee and Greg Wells. And everybody loves Greg Wells, and he's won about everything he's been in. So we made him play the extra game and gave Tom Lee the bye into the semifinals. So we had Tim Rounds played Pete Simonelli in a 1-game playoff to determine who made the playoffs. It was a playoff for the playoffs, and they had to. It was like an 11th game, just like baseball does with the regular season. So they had to use their 3rd starter out of the 4-man rotation. And Eric ended up beating Pete. Or Tim Rounds ended up beating Pete. And Eric Marks played Greg Wells in the other matchup, playoff for the playoffs. And Eric Marks beat Greg Wells. And then Eric Marks beat Tony Stevens to advance to the finals, and he faced Tim Rounds, who beat Tom Lee. Then in the finals, the first 2 games were a split. I think in the first game, Tim Wells threw a 2-hitter Tim Wells. Tim Rounds threw a 2-hitter against Eric Marks' team, and Tim Rounds was the 1914 Brooklyn Robins. He threw a 2-hitter and won the first game. Eric Marks had the 78 Expos. They threw a 1-hitter in the second game. And going into the third game, it was a close game. I think it was 3-2. And then in one of the later innings, Tim got an extra run to go up 4-2. And I believe that was the final score. I know there were a couple guys on base in the bottom of the ninth. Somebody got a hit, and then Tim Rounds intentionally walked the next batter to face whoever the last out was, and that's the way the game ended, 4-2 with 2 guys on base. And Tim Rounds won the championship, which there were a couple things kind of remarkable about that. This was the 3rd regional tournament in a row that Tim Rounds has won, and he told me the other 2, and I cannot remember what they were, which that's just a failure on my part. But he also wore his lucky shirt for the 3rd tournament in a row. So we're going to credit it with the lucky shirt with the victory, and not Tim's savvy with the cards and numbers and all that stuff. So we just had a really good time. A lot of people complimented my wife, complimented me about my wife's food that we had prepared for the meeting. And they mentioned that it was, really good food. I know Tim Rounds was the only one that requested anything, and he requested some macaroni and cheese. So my wife made her macaroni and cheese, and she was missing a few ingredients because she makes it from scratch. But apparently it was still pretty good, and I know I liked it. So the other people liked it as well. We had meatballs in the crock pots, and we had hot dogs prepared in the crock pots. And they're always just really juicy and good. And we had some Little Debbie's, some moon pies, just some kind of hometown, locally created snacks that are really good and people like. And it was just, each year I keep saying it ran really smoothly and things went really well. And because of some health issues, my wife wasn't able to spend the day with us. And her sister had COVID a couple weeks ago, so she wasn't comfortable coming up and being in a crowded room either, and didn't know if she was maybe still contagious. So
I wasn't allowing her to come up. That's the thing. I'm like, you got to be away from me for at least a month after you have COVID.
Right. So that was the issue. And my wife, she's had long COVID now since possibly March of 2020. So she's going on 3 years. And it's developed into some pretty serious health issues. And so she tries to stay away from people as much as possible. And, I'm lucky to still be able to spend time with her. I will send out an email probably later today announcing the theme for next year's Charlie Fouche APBA Shootout, which will be on, right now we're tentatively planning it for February 17th, 2024. I've got to get confirmation from the hotel. I put my request in, and as many of you know, my brother works there. So that's how we're able to secure the room, and he helps set up. And, I help too. And so basically our expenses are the food and the prizes, which we have a first and second place trophy.
And Mike makes really nice prizes.
Yes, Mike makes the trophies, and then he gets the engraving for the front of it. Now, I think they look really sharp. It's a shape. It's a wood cutout in the state of Tennessee shape.
I'll add a picture of it to the video.
Yeah, we'll show that on there. And we've also got a group photo she'll probably be able to add to the video because she can do magic without twitching her nose and all that stuff. And anyway, February 17th, 2024 is a Saturday before President's Day is when we're tentatively planning to have next year's event. And we want to grow a little bit as far as having new people, but we don't want to get so big that we have to change locations because the location works really well. and it's close enough to a lot of good places to go eat. And we'll still plan on having the Friday night dinner.
There's a lot of hotels in that area too.
Right. And I know John Klaus stayed at a hotel next to the Red Lobster, which is on one side of the mall, and the Buelos, where we had our Friday night dinner, is almost the exact opposite side of the mall as far as the outside of it.
I was driving around there the other day when I was dropping stuff off, and I was like, I don't remember all these hotels being around here. I don't know if they've just thrown them up in the last year or.
Well, they've, like the area where the Sears used to be, which shut down 4 or 5 years ago, they built I think it's a True by Hilton, one of those little snazzy little words they use to name their little businessmen's hotel type things. And it's, Hamilton Place is right off I-75, so it's a fairly easy access. And the Embassy Suites is, right across from the road where most people drive to enter the mall, and even if you're not coming directly from I-75. And we just really have a good time. It's a good group of guys, and the Honeycutts have grown to where they're bringing 6 people now. And Jody, he's kind of the patriarch of the family. Excuse me. His youngest grandson that came, Caden, it was the first time, or I think he said he'd played some APBA before, but he played more yesterday than he had all the other times combined. And he said he was a second grader, and he's a pretty sharp kid. And he also won our Newcomer of the Year award. Jim Frash, who was planning on attending and had something came up and he wasn't able to make it, he was going to play with the Braves team. And he had ordered a Braves hoodie to wear, which it actually ended up being, it was around 80 degrees on Thursday, and I think it was in the 60s yesterday, so he might not have needed the hoodie anyway. But he had bought a Braves hoodie, and I believe he said the company that sent it, he'd contacted them after a month or so because he hadn't received it. So they sent him another one, and then I believe he said a week or so later, the original one he ordered finally showed up. So he mailed me the extra one, and we gave that away as a door prize, and it was an extra large, but I can tell by the size of the Honeycutts, and this kid's, he's said he's the tallest kid in his class, so he'll probably be able to wear it without it being too big before too long. But he was really tickled by getting that, and it was pretty cool. Like I said, it was his first time playing, and his record, was 2-8, which isn't all that successful, but that's 2 more games than he'd won in any other tournament he'd ever been in. So he was making progress. And
it's good seeing the kids there too.
Yeah, we have, this year mainly the Honeycutts were the kids we had there, but in the past we've had 1 or 2 other kids show up. And, it was disappointing. Some of the people had different things happen that couldn't make it that had attended all the previous 4. And we just, I can't emphasize enough. Yeah, winning's fun, but just the fellowship and camaraderie we all have. And I think we've talked a few of the attendees into attending the convention in June down in Alpharetta. And I know they will have a blast because it's like our little, it's almost like a little community event. The national convention is like a little community event on steroids. I mean, it's just exponentially better because you have, 2, 3, 4 days, depending on what time you get there, just spending time with people that have a common interest of APBA. And it's not just limited to baseball. It's, football, golf, hockey, soccer. We even had a guy yesterday brought his saddle racing game that he had bought on eBay and was showing some of his card sets and some of the little metal horses he had to use when he plays the game. Anyway, look for an email later today to the people that came this year. I will send that to you and to give you a chance to make some early bird picks on the teams. And, I'll give you a week or so to get your responses in, and then we'll shut down the selection until the Saturday after Thanksgiving at noon. We'll open the team selections back up to just kind of the people that have been attending. It helps give them a little incentive to get a good, I wouldn't say a good team, but probably at least a team that they're more passionate about and enjoy playing. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. I've got an idea in mind that I think will go pretty well.
And what about the people who have never attended that are interested in finding out more about attending possibly?
Well, we're fortunate that we get, in the APBA company newsletter, they're gracious enough to send announcements out. And in the weekly APBA newsletter, you can get information about how to contact me or Mike and, get in touch with us that way. We also have a YouTube channel, which if you're watching this, you're aware of the YouTube channel. And
you can also go to my webpage, cookingwithbobbyjoe.com, and that's cooking, COOKIN, leave the G off. And under the events section, I usually try to post the APBA tournament on there with the contact information.
And I'll probably put a link to that when I do my blog about the event. And she had a video about how she prepares the food, including her secret recipe for the chili.
Secret recipe.
And how she does all that. And I think that's, that'll be pretty special for some people that really enjoyed her chili and talked about how good it was. So anyway, I'm just going to wrap it up, and I just thank everybody for their interest and for their participation, and keep rolling. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.